tap your personal power and pull up a cup for this episode of the InPower Coffee Break. I'm Mary Brody with InPower Coaching, and today our guest is Lori Darley, and she's here to explore today's topic. We're going to talk about her book. Now I'm like blanking on her book. Go figure that.
Want some help?
I know. Like it's like I get stage fright. Dancing Naked. Now it comes to me. Dancing Naked, and we're also going to talk about her book and how it applies to the fluid career. And we hold these coffee breaks live every Tuesday at noon Eastern and 9 a.m. Pacific to explore InPower topics and strategies that help you achieve work-life satisfaction and lead in a pro-human workplace. So join us live, watch and listen to past recordings at coffeebreak.InPowerCoaching.com and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes at InPower Coffee Break. So now we're going to get to it, and I'm going to introduce Lori. So as founder and CEO of Conscious Leaders, LLC, Lori Darley brings nearly 2 decades of experience as a transformational coach and consultant to the conscious business movement. Lori is seasoned in the needs of a full range of decision makers and works exclusively with C-suite executives in many industries. She coaches organizations from multinational corporations such as Ferro Chemical and a Fortune 500 Class 1 rail transportation company to entrepreneurial ventures and individuals in nonprofits, manufacturing, financial services, management consulting, commercial real estate, and the arts. Lori is a certified somatic coach recognized by the Strassi Institute and a certified peak potentials trainer. Additional certifications include Ken Blanchard's situational leadership, Gallup's Strengths Finder, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, and EQ-I2, an emotional intelligence assessment and 360 feedback model. And she's also author of Dancing Naked. And so welcome, Lori. It's so great to have you on.
I'm so excited. It's great to see you.
Yes, great to see you too. So tell us a bit about your book.
Well, the full title is Dancing Naked, Claiming Your Power as a Conscious Leader. And the first half of it is subtitled Claiming My Power, which is kind of a story, collection of stories about the evolution of my thinking as I was growing up and as a dancer, and what some of my personal experiences were that sort of opened me up into this world that has us all think about the way we think. And the second half of the book is called Claiming Your Power. So it steps through a number of stories that I have put together in relationship to the clients that I have worked with. And some of them are more disguised than others based on confidentiality. But what was important for me in the second half was to really reflect the type of work that I do, the depth of the work that I do, and some of the results that we co-create together.
Awesome. Yeah, one of the things we're focused on this year at InPower is the fluid career, and I'll read you the description so this way I don't mess it up with the stage fright going on. So Dana's been observing this new career trend, and she calls it fluid careers. And what she's been noticing is the average tenure of a job professional is around 3.5, 3.7 years. So someone could have up to like 10 to 12 jobs in a lifetime and possibly 2 to 3 careers. And, it's freeing, right? Because you can control the work-life balance. But it's anxiety producing, right? Because you've got this programming in your head, like you should be doing this multi-year career and getting your 25-year, silver anniversary gift.
Yeah. There's no guarantee that if you had one of those that you wouldn't have that anxiety either. Right? Just a different conversation inside. Yeah.
Right. And that's where, there's noticing the rise of the gig economy and, employee tenures changing. There's increases in employee dissatisfaction, employee turnover, right? And people are looking more, I know one conversation we had, it's almost like people are doing more self-realization and self-actualization where they're doing what they like to do. So I know you also have a framework in your book that you outline. So I'd like to talk to you a bit about that and how you see that working with something like the fluid, like what's happening with that trend with the fluid career.
Yeah, sure. So the process is called the clearing process. And it contains what I consider 4 conversational spaces. So if you're looking for a linear process, this may not be for you, because what I have learned through my experience is that some of our minds are more linear than others, but oftentimes our insights come to us out of the blue. And despite our attempt to make lists and go from point A to point B in a logical way, when we're moving through transition, it's a very emotional space. So the 4 conversational spaces are clarity, which is all about having a direct experience of who you are and how you think about what you think about. And we all are, I think, probably to some degree already self-aware. We know that there's words that come out of our mouths. We know that we have an impact on people. If you're successful in the workplace, you understand that every thought, every action, every word has impact. And so the level of impact, how that actually occurs for people can be somewhat, that may be where our blind spots keep us from having a direct experience of it. So that first space is about, for somebody in a fluid career, understanding what is it that jazzes you up, what is it that brings you alive, what are your values, what are the things that are most important to you. Because from what I understand about our current workforce, we are no longer willing to tolerate workplaces where we have to check ourselves at the door and put a mask on, right? So getting clarity about that, at the same time, understanding that there may be a whole lot of other people that I'm working with who may not be a reflection of my values. So how do I navigate that territory, right? So there's a lot to that clarity conversation. We have to understand how we're wired up, how our minds work, what the neuroscience is to a sort of an elemental level before we actually have the power to practice something else. And why would I want to? Well, it all depends upon the results that you're getting and the quality of your relationship. So that's clarity. Completion, which I would imagine would be extraordinarily powerful space to, or a way of inquiring for people who have multiple work experiences. The reason for that, when one is whole and complete about something, you're no longer carrying the baggage of your past along with you, right? So I don't know about you, but when I was in my 20s, I was really gathering information, data about who I was, based on the stories and the experiences that I had and the stories that I told about them. I still do that, right? That never goes away. We are meaning-making machines. Sometimes, however, we rip ourselves off in our interpretation of those stories. So there's a process, an embodiment, so that, are you there? Sorry,
Yes,
I lost
I
you.
am. Yeah, that's okay.
Did I go away? Because I had a call coming in. Okay.
Yeah, no, the way I look at like internet connectivity, it could be you, could be me, could be a bird. And I talked to this IT guy and he said, actually, I'm kind of right. Like a truck could drive by and screw up a whole call.
I love it. Well, so good. Yay. Woohoo! We didn't lose. That's great. That's great. So, so it's an embodied process. It engages the mind, the heart, and the full body to come to a place of wholeness around, if I'm choosing and creating my life moment by moment in every word, thought, and action, then where is it that I'm really headed? Okay, so from that place of completion emerges the place of creation. And that's the third space where, we are connected to the time-space continuum, right? We will always have a story about our past, but the truth is we're never in our past and we're never in our future. The only place we ever really are is right here and right now. So that means that in right here and right now, if I'm choosing my career from an intentional, committed, and fully chosen place, then I have this opportunity to go, okay, what is it that I really want to create right now, today, in this workspace? Is it is it meeting my expectations? And what are the conversations that I need to be having to create the relationships that I want so that things are working? Am I backing off of those conversations with my boss or my coworkers because, you know what, they just don't fit my pictures and my preferences and my tendencies? Or am I going to look beyond who they are and who they're being, and also create a place for me to show up fully and authentically? I hope that makes sense. I'm open to questions.
Yeah.
And then finally, in terms of fluid careers, the fourth and final space is around, set of conversations is I call capacity. And that's where we're looking at how does one maximize your impact, right? We're increasing our awareness, and then how is it that we are really showing up as an authentic expression of what's most important to us, what our values are, and that when you go to work, it's not like you have to turn something on and something else off, but that you show up and your work is an expression of at least a good bit of who you are, naturally and authentically.
Nice. Nice. I can see this being used, like, because it's almost like you can use it almost all the time to help you guide you through your journey, right? Because it never ends. Like when you were there were elements like you were talking about, like, you get your clarity and you get your aha moments, like, this is what I should be doing. And then when I was hearing the creation, I'm like, but that creation can happen like every day, all day. It never ends.
I call it, rather than a linear process, I think of it as holographic. It's like the whole is contained in each of its parts, if that makes sense to you.
Yes.
It's kind of a science term where, that it's not a Star Trekian thing. It's actually quantum physics, which is kind of really out there.
Yeah, right.
But the point being is that we, particularly in this technologically driven world, we need to work at staying connected to our humanity and to what it means to really interact face to face, body to body, sharing oxygen together. I mean, it's really crucial. I think not just for our sanity, but maybe for our survival.
Right.
Get too heavy or anything, but yeah, it's important.
Yeah, because I think sometimes we do, especially in, like you said, the modern work environments, they are getting more and more virtual. Even though you have some companies are mandating people show up to the office. But I noticed there's also, like, some people do tend to work from home and things do get lost in translation, or you do get that isolation. And I've noticed also on teams, you don't always realize it, but you don't see people as people anymore. They're just voices on a phone. And right. And creation comes with interacting with other people as well as what's going on in your head.
Yeah. Like, what's up with you? Who are you? Why does this matter to you, Mary?
Right. So that's where, like, have you also been observing, like, this trend of people looking like they're starting to make changes because they are caring about what matters to them? And that does change over your journey.
Of course.
I know in your book, you started as having a dance company and you were a dancer.
As a dancer first. I think I'll always be a dancer. I think that I have a soul of a dancer.
Yeah.
And so that was talk about very, very tied to my identity. Right? It was very much who I was, how I identified myself. I developed a reputation in the community as an arts leader. And that transition was it was committed, and I had no idea where I was headed. I mean, I declared myself one day a transitions coach. And with a lot of support around me and my coaches and my husband and all of that. And it didn't necessarily stop, though, the internal voice going, what the WTF, what am I doing here, right? Because I was really definitely turning my face towards something else, essentially my entire being. And it was quite a transition. It wasn't always easy, but it was a huge learning in terms of I think that when people make dramatic changes in their life, one of the fears is that we're going to lose ourselves. We're going to forget who we are. Right.
Yes.
I think the fact that I say to myself, I think I'll always be a dancer. I have a soul of a dancer. It's like that part of me no one can rip that out of me, because it's built into me. It's built into my
Right.
DNA. So I think the misperception is that when we make a dramatic transition, that we lose our identity, we'll lose who we are, our sense of being, our anchor, so to speak. And the truth is, you know what, the beauty and the terror of the mind is that it's never going to stop doing its thing. And it will always remind us of sort of, it will fill us with doubt, whether we want it to or not. And it becomes an embodied practice to really continue to create from your intention, from your vision, and from your commitments, right? It's the only, that I've found, it's the only antidote to the, I'll say the small self. Okay, the smaller identity, how we keep ourselves kind of locked up into this sort of way of being or relating to the world. And there's infinite possibility of our way of exploring and being ourselves.
Yeah, because when you're talking about like the identity, I'm like, well, that gets like your personal view of yourself, and then you start into something new. So let's say someone uses the clearing, right, to go through, and I could see like it's hard to get that clarity of where you're going next. And you're right, the letting go that what you were doing isn't primary anymore. It's still there. It doesn't go away. You can use it.
Yeah, and I will tell you that I actually went through this process. It wasn't called the clearing process, but my mentor guided me through that period of time when I was like, okay, I had hired myself a coach in the latter days of the dance company to kind of examine, did we have founder syndrome? Because I was one of 10 little Indians. It's a very terrible expression to use. It's not even. I apologize. But I'm showing my age. But I was a 10th co-founder, and I was the one who'd been running it for the last 10 years essentially. And I was guided to be able to divorce myself from the meaning that I had created from that time. So initially my first coach was to look at founder syndrome, and I was in an inquiry, a very strong inquiry around what's next for me. What is it that really matters to me? And I was really surprised when I found that I was just so incredibly drawn to this world of transformation, to something that I learned very early on from age 16 up, which is that our thoughts really, they don't create our reality, but our thoughts are 100% correlated with the reality that we're perceiving, if that makes sense. It's a more exact way of putting it in language. And with that insight, I got that the sky was the limit. And the tough part was really understanding what direction that I wanted to go. And then how I created my own value, and how did I express that value and create the money conversation around it. Because early on, a funny story about that, actually. One of my very first clients, I don't know, do we have time?
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah. I'm curious because you brought up the money. I'm like, so what's this money conversation? How does this fit into the story? So I want to.
Well, I mean, fluid career. It's all about our money.
Right.
How much are you worth? How much are you willing to put yourself on the line for? What are you going to say that you're actually capable of doing, and remain in integrity? Right. But the story was that one of my first clients was a financial planner. And I quoted her a price, and she said, "Okay, I'll get." So I won't tell you the little detail there. She went home to her husband, and she told him that she met with a coach, and he was like, "Oh, wait a minute, let me look her up." And he found out that I was a dance graduate from SMU and all this stuff. And he said, "Oh, don't work with her. She's just a she just recently, hung up her shingle or whatever. And she said to him, her husband, she says, "It's too late. I already wrote her a check." And what happened is I ended up over time actually working with both of them with their firm. And it was just one of those great stories of owning the fact that as a dancer, I had been coaching and training people from in their heads, and their approach to leadership, their approach to partnership, their approach to integrity, showing up as artists. We could be really nutty, right? And so we gotta be our word in order for things to work. Without integrity, nothing works.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true. That's very true. Yeah, it's interesting when you're bringing up the thoughts and the words and how because it does define you, and that's where I think like with the clearing, it gets you to use new words.
Yeah.
And
yes.
And let go of again, not maybe let go, but maybe downplay other words. Like you're still there, or you see something that was downplayed now, like what you're talking about with dancing. Like you're right. As a dancer, you're also bringing out other people and their talents. You're coaching every day.
Yes.
And you brought it out more now. Now that's what you do more full time than before.
Yeah, that language thing is really important. And it's a subtle distinction, because just because you say something does not make it true, right? We can sometimes get into this positive thinking illusion where we're putting, frosting, better words on a moldy cake.
Yeah.
Right. You still have to do that. You still have to figure out, why is the cake moldy? Right. What is it? What is incomplete? What has not, where have you left a wake or some metaphorical dead bodies? And I say that strictly metaphorically. I don't work with gangsters. But we all have those relationships in our life that we may beat ourselves up about, and getting complete about that and doing whatever you can to forgive yourself, forgive the other person, and bring your relationships back into wholeness is key.
Now, one thing about change, when is a good time to make a change? When do you notice people do come to you for making a change? Is it like because they're stuck, or what are they observing?
Well, there's a whole lot of theory around that. When I first started my coaching practice, it seemed like I was working with an awful lot of 43-year-old women.
I'll attest that's actually true, because I'm like in my early 40s and I'm like, yeah, it's time for changes. And I've been noticing all these shifts and I'm like, it's making my head spin. But yeah, okay.
I'm not saying it's a scientific finding. I'm just saying that that's been my experience. I think that there comes a couple of times in life where we sort of wake up and we've been in some sort of somnambulant haze. We're kind of on automatic. We think that something else is going to change, or some miracle is going to happen where we're going to be taken out of the circumstances. And they may not be that bad. They just may be very, very comfortable. Right. So I think that there's two ways. One is that you can have a crucible moment, like a heart attack, an accident, an illness, where you're kind of like, okay, all bets are off. I've got to start thinking about how to finish out this life with gusto, with a sense of purpose and freedom and joy, right? And or there can be an intentional crucible moment where you actually put yourself into a set of conversations where you create that opportunity for yourself to go, oh wow, this really is up to me, and oh wow, I can really create it, right? Nice. And you have to look at the whole system. You got to look at a lot of the beliefs that we take on as early in early childhood may or may not really serve you anymore, right? Your beliefs, all your thoughts shape the way the world occurs to you, and some of our beliefs may keep us stuck, particularly around money conversations.
Yes. And
It's a construct, right? We have opinions about money. My perception of money is energy. I mean, it's digital. It's digital,
yeah,
right?
it's digital. It's energy. It's what you're putting out there and what you're receiving back as compensation for what you put
Right, and it's creation too. And there's all, I'm not the money changing expert person who's going to, I've been to the Secrets of the Millionaire Mind conferences. Oh, there's a penny. I have a millionaire mind. Right? I love that training. But ultimately it comes down to what am I really contributing? I have to be responsible for this. I don't have to be, but it works so much better when I am,
right.
Because I begin to then see that I'm drawing the money into my life, which is a reflection of my contribution.
Right. Yeah, I'm seeing this with the fluid career, looking at like the clearing and then going through with the creation with like how you view money and your thoughts and your beliefs and revisiting that, especially when it does come time for that shift, when you're noticing things don't serve you anymore.
Yeah.
For some reason you're feeling this stuck. I wonder like if some of the listeners will notice like, hey, I'm going through my career and like you said, you're in a daze.
Yeah.
Right? You're stuck, you're in a daze and you realize something's not right. I'm floating. That's actually, a friend of mine told me that. I was actually in my mid-20s. And she said to me, we were on the phone because I was at work and I considered it a fluffy job. And she's like, you're floating. Will you get a real job that makes you really think? She's like, you're just floating along. You're having a great time, but what are you doing?
Yeah.
And it was like she slapped me in the face and I was like, oh, what do I do now? I now have to take that step back and revisit. Because I could see how your approach would help so many people. We're starting to run to time. So I'm wondering if you had to, I know there's so many more things to discuss. What if you had to give one piece of advice to listeners and people, what would you give?
If you have a sense that you're ready for a change or you're ready for a transition or to create your life newly, get out of your own head and into conversation with somebody who's a committed listener and who's skilled at actually providing you the challenge, the level of challenge, where you can begin to crack that door open wider so that you can really be present to your own magnificence. And it's like, I can't quote the quote verbatim. I think it's a Marianne Williamson or a Nelson Mandela or one of them were quoting each other. But it really boils down to that we have no idea what we're really capable of. And this is not a reliable source for actually creating that. It's created in conversation, but you gotta do some work to kind of massage it and strip away the old stuff that doesn't serve you anymore.
I love the magnificence part because that's so wonderful. That was wonderful. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary.
Oh, this was awesome. This was
so much fun.
Yeah, thank you. And people, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the InPower Coffee Break. And please visit us at coffeebreak.InPowerCoaching.com to see upcoming topics, past recordings, and learn how you can join us live and have an empowered day. And thanks so much, Lori, for joining us today.
Such a blast. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.